Hey everybody, Rockin Robbie Billups here for Pop Culture Philosophers, and it's time for Robbie Rants. And today, we're going to be talking about my favorite vampire movies. Alright guys, Halloween is right around the corner, and of course, that's always a good time for horror movies. In fact, any good time is a good time for horror movies. In particular, I'm a huge vampire fan. Once people find out, they want to know, what are your favorite vampire movies? So, let's go over my recommendations to you for the best vampire movies for any Fear Friday movie night you want to have, or of course, a Halloween movie night. First up, 1922, Nosferatu. Now I know that a lot of people can't get into silent films, but this movie is creepy, legitimately creepy. And it is a little hard to get through because it does kind of get dull after time because it's a silent film and it's rather long for a silent film. But this movie is great. It's directed by F.W. Murnau, a German expressionistic just genius, right? Him and Fritz Lang and a couple others, they defined that genre of film, which has influenced many other movies, including like Tim Burton's Batman Returns, for instance. But Max Schreck plays Count Orlok. This movie is so creepy, so cool. The visuals are just stunning, and it will legitimately creep you out. And I think the fact that it's a silent film actually helps that out. This movie was a direct adaptation of Dracula. They couldn't get the rights, so they renamed the Count Orlok instead of Dracula. But the movie is creepy. It's got some iconic imagery. This movie is worth your time. Next up, 2002, Blade 2. Blade 2, a superhero movie? Yeah, but it's one of the best vampire movies ever. Directed by Guillermo del Toro, and of course starring Wesley Snipes, and all you Walking Dead fans, Norman Reedus is in this film. Blade 2 is so much better than Blade 1. I love Blade, and I love Blade 2 even more. Blade 3, did that even happen? Anyway, the Reapers, the vampires, their like necks open up in this wide giant thing. Guillermo del Toro wanted to make vampires scary again, and he goes back to Nosferatu, and he really makes them super scary and threatening. And Blade 2 is worth your time. As a vampire movie, it is fantastic. Now, let's talk about 2008's Let the Right One In. It's a Swedish film. It was directed by Thomas Alfredson. This movie is fantastic. It is so creepy, so genuinely interesting, and it's got a great story. It's kind of like a romance between these two, young children, but it's a vampire story, and it's super creepy, and it's very effective. And the scene with the cats. That's all I'm going to say about that. 1987's got two of my absolute favorite vampire movies of all time. One of them is obvious. The Lost Boys. That's right. Joel Schumacher's vampire classic, The Lost Boys, with Kiefer Sutherland, Jason Patric, tons of other people. Of course, the Coreys. We just did a movie night about The Lost Boys. I love this movie. It's super cheesy. It's super stylish, but I like it. And Kiefer Sutherland is just fantastic. Also, in 1987 was the classic, at least in my opinion, from Catherine Bigelow, Near Dark. Near Dark is fantastic. I'm sure you've heard me talk about it on a few recent videos, including underrated horror movies. Near Dark is worth your time. It's a super cool, horror western thing. Lance Hendrickson, Bill Paxton. Have I sold you yet? This movie is fantastic. It's subtle. It's got great music with a soundtrack from Tangerine Dream. It's moody. It's just fantastic. And yes, it does center around a love story, like a lot of vampire movies do, but this one's legit. It's written very well. I cannot recommend this movie better. In fact, this would be my favorite vampire movie, if not for the king daddy of them all. 1931, the director Todd Browning brought us Dracula. Dracula, starring Bela Lugosi, 1931, still stands as my absolute favorite vampire movie of all time and one of my absolute favorite horror movies of all time. So much of what we know as horror films, like the tropes that are involved, all the imagery, a lot of that stuff comes from Todd Browning's Dracula. Absolutely. The spiders, the cobwebs, all that stuff, the crazy creepy castle, the capes, the giant staircases, the crazy madman. This all comes from Dracula. Dracula is fantastic. They've remade this movie a lot with Christopher Lee and the Hammer films. Francis Ford Coppola did Bram Stoker's Dracula. Well, Gary Oldman does a fantastic Dracula in that movie. But the original with Bela Lugosi and also Frank Langella. Can never forget the Frank Langella supremely romantic version of Dracula. But Bela Lugosi's is just perfect. He defined the character for generations. In fact, you can't think of Dracula without thinking of the imagery that you get from Bela Lugosi. The voice, the sleek, the sexiness of it. Like, he is just charming and engaging and enthralling. Dracula. Seriously, watch some of those movies if you're into some cool vampire stuff. You don't want anything like Twilight or any of that other kind of mess, but you want something good, you want something creepy, you want something stylish. These movies, cannot recommend them enough. Seriously, check some of them out. And if you want to support PCP, there's some links down below where you can buy these movies on Amazon and actually help support this here YouTube channel. You can also help support us by checking us out at popculturephilosophers.com for podcasts, blogs, top 5 lists, and a whole lot more. We appreciate everything. Please do like and share this video, and be sure to subscribe to the channel so that you're up to date on every bit of commentary and opinion that we do on pop culture. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Rockin Robbie Billups. This is PCP. Thank you for joining the Army. Catch you next time.